You're listening to the Dudes and Dads Podcast, a show dedicated to helping men be better dudes and dads by building community through meaningful conversation and storytelling. And now, here are your hosts, Joel DeMott and Andy Lehman.
Joel, you're awake.
Andrew, listen, man. Detroit Rock City, man. Back fresh from the great Motor City in Detroit.
You had a late night.
Late night, overnight baseball tournament. I don't recommend it to anybody, but we're here. My body doesn't know what time it is right now, but I'm feeling lively and engaged
And ready to go.
and ready to do this thing.
Sweet. Well, I'm glad because we're doing this thing.
We are.
So.
No, there's no turning back now. How are things with you, Andy?
Going well. Just getting ready for our vacation, and yeah,
You're going on vacation.
we are. So
Where are you going?
to the Florida,
The
Florida
Florida.
with the family. So
Are you doing like
Disney,
Oh, that's right. That's right. Disney.
with the kids. So
Is everybody equally as excited about this?
yeah, yes, we all are very excited.
You
So.
like the Disney thing.
Yes, we do.
That's
So.
good. I've not done the Disney World. We did the Disneyland a few years ago. We went with, may he rest in peace, we went with Uncle Gary, who, Uncle Gary, disabled Vietnam vet who got us to the front of every single line.
Sweet.
So this is how my kids think Disney
works.
operates. When we do the next visit, they're going to be really disappointed.
Yeah,
They're going to
definitely.
be like, where's Uncle Gary and his jazzy? Get me to the
You're
front
just
of the
gonna-
line.
Yeah, do that whole like weekend at Bernie's thing and just bring them along anyways.
That's dark.
Oh,
But
man.
yes,
Yeah.
we should bring along their dead great uncle. Why not? Hey everybody, welcome to the Dudes and Dads Podcast. Glad to see, to hear, to experience each and every one of
Yes.
you as you join us each and every week. Guys, thank you. We do just want to continue to say thank you for your support as you've jumped on the Patreon bandwagon, as you've continued to just say, not just with your voices, but with your dollars. With your dollars, you've said, hey, we like the show. We think you guys are okay. And we want you to keep on doing the thing. So as always, you can head over to the Dudes and Dads podcast.com/support. Andy, did I get
Yes,
that right?
you did.
/support. And there's a number of different ways that you can support us financially over there. Be a Patreon member. Glad for each and every one of you to come alongside of us. So thank you.
Okay, great. So tonight we have Jacob with us. Jacob, welcome to our show.
Hi, Jacob.
Gentlemen, I'm so stoked to talk to you guys.
Yeah, us
Gentlemen.
too.
Oh, yeah.
So Jacob reached out to me and said, hey, I've created this documentary. And first off, I do want to put this warning here. We are going to be talking about a little bit adult themes. So we've talked about things like this in the show before. We're talking about porn tonight. So
Would you say we're PG-13? Are we PG-13 plus?
We're just going to be, I'm just warning parents that if there are little kids in the car, we are going to be talking about the topic of pornography. So
fantastic.
the documentary that you guys created is about pornography and the freedom from that. And so we wanted to bring you on and talk a little bit about that tonight. So welcome to our show.
Man, again, really excited to be here.
So the thing that everyone wants to know, I don't know if everyone wants to know, I want to know. I'm always just curious, I guess maybe take us back to the beginning of the journey of this filmmaking process. Because there's always, for every filmmaker, for every documentary, there's always the things that led up to it, the crossing of paths of different people, the hearing of the stories, the kind of the initial groundswell, if you will,
Yeah.
if I can call that, that led to what the ultimate end product here as we talk about the documentary. So I'd just love for you to tell us kind of the story of what got to the point of you saying, hey, we need to make a film. And by we, you also have you have a partner, which you can tell us all about too. Was going to be with us. He's under the weather. So we want to extend our well wishes to him as well. But yeah, tell us the story.
Yeah, man. So my film partner, John Michael Bout. Honestly, I'll say we probably 90% of this whole story, because that lovely saint, like the two of us are like brothers, and pretty much everything
Sure.
we do like
Good.
weaves together. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so the documentary is about pornography, and specifically it's about freedom from pornography.
Mhm.
And so the reason that we're so stoked to be working on something like this, or have finished a documentary, is because freedom from sexual sin, from pornography, has been such a big part of our like testimony and actually coming to Christ. And so if you go all the way back for my story in particular, I had a bit of a unique story. My mom, amazing Christian woman, she talked to me a lot about pornography from when I was really young. And I had this incredible opportunity just because of my mom and by the grace of God to not actually get hooked on pornography proper at any point in my life. And that's really rare. So I
Mhm.
had this fortunate opportunity to not have that particular area. But I was completely addicted to masturbation
Mhm.
for like almost all of my teenage life. So, Jesus is very clear about that, Matthew 5, that lust in your heart, just pursuing that over and over again. And so I gave into that. And I kind of had this Pharisee card too, where I
Sure.
was like, I've got friends who watch porn, but I don't do that. Right.
Mhm.
And I flipped through my Bible, didn't see masturbation in there. So I was good to go. I'll tell Jamichael's story was he also had incredible godly parents who talked to him about pornography, but he discovered porn when he was very young, and he had a decade of being completely hooked to it. So we kind of became friends at about the point in our life where God really gripped both of us. And it was a combination of really good friends, getting our hands on some solid resources, and kind of one of those slow but really cataclysmic moments in your life where like I started realizing I'm not walking the Christian
Mhm.
life at all. And I've got this sin that I'm just recklessly giving into. And and then going with all the some different idols in my life. And so God, through some really good friends, really freed me from this bondage to sexual sin. And honestly, that might have been the time. It was about 20 years old or so that I genuinely became a Christian. And I felt just a level of freedom that it's almost impossible to articulate to me, or I wouldn't have even
Sure.
believed it was possible at some point before that. So, anyways, this is I started, investing in some accountability groups in my hometown back in Canada. And Jamichael, my film partner, he did too. And that just became a really regular part of our lives. These accountability groups were still important to us as we're growing in holiness, investing in other guys. And we had all these books that, Heath Lambert wrote, Garrett Kell wrote, that were so meaningful to us. And we give them out. And not everyone had the time, had the space to read them. And it kind
Sure.
of just became this consistent thing where, these books were incredible, but not getting opened. Fast forward, I go to seminary and I had this really cool opportunity to get coffee with Tim Challies. I don't know if you guys have heard
Yeah.
of him.
Yep.
Yeah, so he wrote this really great book called Sexual Detox. And Tim's hilarious. I asked him about it. I'm like, what was the process of writing that book? And he goes, the book's fine. He's like, yeah, we've got better ones at this point, which I get. Yeah, I thought it was so funny. He's a
Yeah.
really down to earth guy. But then he kind of stopped and he looked at me and he's like, it's interesting. We have this video problem of pornography. And in answer, we typically write books.
Mm.
There could be a space that could be used for like a video oriented resource that tackled the problem. And he kind of just said that and just kind of kept on going with the conversation. But I was like thunderstruck because Tim didn't know that film was my background. That's what I did.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
so I kind of left that conversation like, huh. So immediately called Jamichael, who's back in Canada. He's since joined me at seminary, where we go to the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary here in Louisville, Kentucky. And I said, bro, we're freedom from sexual sin has been so important in our lives and in our walk with God. And we've both been invested in accountability groups and things like that. We're filmmakers. Is there room for us? Could we potentially make a really counseling oriented resource that walks through the problem of pornography? And so we kind of chewed on it. We started kind of baseballing ideas back and forth. And eventually, we realized really quickly, okay, our faces should not be in this thing. So can we reach out to all of these writers, these authors, these speakers, these counselors who have meant a lot to us and see if they'd be willing to kind of come together and form this team that would be like the backbone of the documentary? Praise God, they did. And
Yeah.
it kicked off many, many months of Zoom meetings, and I'll put you in contact with this person and swapping emails and I mean the whole process, which you guys can ask about. But
Sure.
the end result is, Into the Light is a teaching documentary that walks through the process of change, right? From bondage and sexual sin to freedom in Christ. So it's
Mhm.
a resource for strugglers, and our heart is that we want it to be a tool for the church to give people resources who might struggle to read. And
Sure.
so that's the sales pitch, and it's done. What's really awesome about it, which I'd love to talk about this, is it's free. It's
Yeah.
100% free for churches, families, for anyone to jump on our website, intothelightdocumentary.com, and
Let's
watch
talk.
it. So,
Let's talk about that. Like, so how are you able to make that free? Like, let's
yeah.
talk about that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
because I don't know about you guys, but like I don't know if you're on Facebook and you see like offering this free course now,
Yeah,
and you're
right.
like,
That's bait and switch, 100%.
yeah, you're like, well, or bait and switch, or you're like, if it's actually free, it's probably crap. Like,
yeah,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
not gonna.
yeah.
So what we did, so one of our convictions was we really wanted to offer it for free, if we could.
Mhm.
Our other conviction was starving's not a great idea. So Joe Michael has a wife and his second kid on the way. So we couldn't just loan a year and a half of our life to this. So what we did is we tried to do a crowdfunding model. So what we did is we invested about $40,000 of our own time and money into it up front, spent that time to film with Heath Lambert, Garrett Kell, Ellen Dykus, all these different speakers. And then we started crowdfunding in the summer of 2022. And man, one of the most humbling things I've ever been through in my life, just Christians across North America, like, praise God, saw the vision, stepped up, and we raised $85,000
Wow.
in about 6 weeks. Tense weeks, but 6
Yeah.
weeks. And so now that paid for the whole film. And so now it's a free
That's
resource.
awesome.
And I'm stoked about that because I don't have to do a bait and switch. I don't have
Sure.
to sell anything on the other end. It's just, I hope it's helpful. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about. You said it's a teaching resource, and when I watched it, I did watch it, and it's in chapters. So how is this meant to be consumed? Is it meant to be consumed as one giant documentary, or is it in different, small group settings, or how do you envision this going for people watching it?
Yeah. So we did the chapters so you could have that flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I kind of think about it is, if let's say you're a pastor of a church and you're like, I would love a resource that like I could just invite the church to and kind of get everyone on the same page, kind of get some of those resources or some of those kind of key ideas, accountability, how addictive pornography is, hope for people who are struggling, God's good design for marriage. Just kind of get some of those foundations out there to a larger group of people. Then watching it like a documentary is one of the best ways to do that. So it's like 90 minutes long, a little bit less, and it's a full film. But then we also broke it up into 6 teaching sections, so 6 chapters. And so someone could run a 6-week like kind of small group study guide style, and then watch each one, have that discussion, talk about it. And then each of those speakers take up those 6 chapters. And then we are a week or so, maybe 2 weeks from releasing a study guide that
Great.
leaders could
Awesome.
grab question sets, take home material and stuff like that can kind of accompany those chapters, and people can walk through. So it's functionally the same material, but we chopped it up on our website in 2 different ways, just depending on what's most helpful for people, I guess.
Yeah.
I've been thinking, and Andy, I don't know if I know Andy probably had similar thoughts as he was watching this and as I was watching it. So my 2 eldest boys are 13 and 12 years old, and we are, I've got 4 kiddos, but those 2 right now are,
Those are the ones. Yeah.
those are the ones. Jackie and my wife and I are routinely, we just had another conversation this past weekend about like, we do the regular check-in of like, how well are we doing at talking to our children and to our boys and, about sex in general, just sexuality in general, because they're obviously bombarded with a lot of different narratives about that, mostly right now, not explicitly, but more like it's just sort of kind of like bubbling into the culture, right? Like there's just kind of all these assumptions that are made. So whenever I heard one of my boys even use the term gay the other day, like accurately, like not pejoratively, but accurately. And I'm like, so where, again, it's like, well, where is he hearing this? And if he's hearing this, what else is he hearing? And your mind begins to go like, okay, there's a level of exposure there, obviously. But as I was watching this documentary, I thought to myself, like, even like like age appropriateness for this documentary and for the audience. I felt like, at least by and large, that my 12 and 13-year-old son could watch this with me and have a really clear and again, so great. I think a real pat on the back to you guys is that it's so clearly communicated. There's not there's not a lot of confusing content to it. Very biblically straightforward, clearly communicated. But like you said, in kind of these bite-sized pieces that, because I know, like with my kiddos, it's like, okay, if I get a 15-minute viewing session in with them, we've done well, right? That's good. So that was what began to turn around and kind of turn in my brain of kind of the audience that you guys were hoping for, just in terms of age range. What were you thinking about there? Because I'm sure that those conversations were at play. As you thought about this being a church, because as a filmmaker, and I even as a communicator myself, you're always thinking, okay, how broad do I want this to be? Where do I want it to go narrow? Where do I want it to go wide? What is the purpose? You're trying to kind of reverse engineer all of that. What were your guys' thoughts about that kind of conversation? Because I know plenty of the dads that are listening right now are going, is this something that, my kid at age XYZ could engage with, with me?
Yeah. Dude, I love some of those things you noticed about it too. I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's a tough question because, and you guys know this too, like as parents, culture and the ubiquity of pornography.
There you go. Yep.
Kind of forces your hand a little bit for the conversation. So in a different world, it would have been really nice to let most of our kids grow up to 12 without really having the talk and just let that go. But you don't get that option really anymore. No. Especially the majority of my friends, they've stumbled across pornography when they were about 8 or 9 years old. And so it's like, it's kind of hard because, part of me wishes we didn't have to have that conversation. You guys, your parents, you know what's up. One of our commitments was when we were creating the documentary is to just radically stay away from anything that would be either triggering or pointing to lust. So there's no scare tactics. There's no shock value. Like, this is how bad the porn industry is, which has its time and place, right? I'm not against that, but this is very much, hey, you love Jesus, you're a Christian. We're not going to sit here and try and sell you on why porn is wrong. You've got that. But you're a struggler. Let's walk through the process. Just starting with step 1 all the way to, ending with Garrett Kell, who talks about like your hope in Christ and what it looks like to be part of a church walking alongside each other. And so all that to say, yeah, it's cool. It's cool for me to hear that you feel like you could hit that maybe carefully with your like 12-year-old. Because that was about where like kind of the minimum of where we were thinking. Because there's heavy stuff in there, really walking through God's design for marriage. We touch we talk a little bit about masturbation, trying to walk through that conversation, which is complex, and just going through a lot of the the foundational steps to like cutting off access and things like that. And so our target was a little older, probably like late teens or something. Obviously we really hope it's a simple documentary in the sense of we don't do a foray into marriage. We don't really go into like dating conversations. We don't really dive into the porn industry. It's a really simple, what does the process of change look like for someone who's struggling?
Well,
let's go.
And I think a base level, like even as you begin the film, like a base level of what I would kind of say a core theology on sexuality in general. Like, and if we start there, and I think about, that's probably the biggest. I mean, it's really interesting for me, like as someone with a, advanced theological degree, like I think to myself, that's all well and good, but when you sit down across from your 12-year-old and you try to, like it's like all of daddy's fancy learning, in that moment, it's kind of like, okay, how do you succinctly and appropriately and contextually bring your child into the world of sexuality? In a way that they're going to navigate it in a healthy way, understand core kind of foundational biblical principles. Because that's the other thing. Like, I didn't feel, I don't know, there's sometimes where I can almost feel myself getting on the defensive for like the potential listener who, is already struggling, and I think you said it so well, is already struggling, and basically what they're hearing is not going to help them move forward, but basically it's just going to confirm, that they feel like crap already, and then it's just a confirmation of, no, you should feel like crap, and good luck, and good luck with that. There's hope there, which I would hope that all of us, could see on the other side. So
it was interesting, Joel. As we were coming here, both of my boys are actually here at the church tonight, and they were like, who's going to be, who are you interviewing? And so I took that time and said, there's this guy a couple guys that created this, documentary on porn, and we're going to be talking about that and how to be, free to become free from that. And so that was a good opportunity for me to talk about that. And I probably actually will end up watching it with them. I didn't watch it last night with them, but I probably will end up watching it with them. But yeah, so it was a good opportunity for me. My boys are older. I know there's high school age. So they're definitely that's
they're ready.
Age. Yeah.
They're ready for the conversation.
Yeah.
They're definitely they're definitely hearing. I mean, they're hearing plenty of things.
Right.
Things elsewhere.
Right.
So
well, and one of the things I appreciated too in the documentary was you guys touched on the fact that porn isn't just a dude problem; it's also female. Like it's not, obviously not. It's people that are female also struggle with that same thing. So I appreciated you guys touching on that too.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So that's that again was one of the things that we kind of settled on pretty quickly. Was like, we need to have this conversation. We need to include women in this conversation, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. That kind of started off as a conviction, but a bit of a fuzzy idea, if I'm honest. Mm-hmm. So the first thing, as a couple of guys making this, we're like, hold on. So we contacted every woman biblical counselor, every author we could, and just basically were like, hey, a couple of guys making a documentary here. Please tell us what you think. Just start kind of pouring into us your thoughts on this problem, so that if we're going to make a resource, we're going to do it right for our sisters in the church. And oh my goodness, well, first of all, a lot of them were really grateful that we reached out to them, but they just started just being very clearly said, don't for a second buy that this is just a man's problem. I can't tell you how many girls I get through our doors at our counseling office who are just hooked on proper hardcore pornography, just like guys. And I've read some of the sociological literature. You can slice and dice the statistics in a few different ways, and there's meaningful differences when you want to have that level of conversation. But on the whole, it's just, there are so many girls, women in churches who are just really, really struggling with this. And one of the things that a lot of the women were talking to us about, they're like, you don't understand, it's very, actually, I shouldn't say you don't. It's very hard for, especially guys, to understand the extra levels of shame that women go through, because we've talked about it like a man's problem for so long. So a lot of women are in the pews when just a casual reference to, and the guys with pornography, they go, what kind of monster am I that I struggle with this man's problem? And when you really boil it down, it's so horrible to throw out a problem in the church context and then not follow that up with the good news of the gospel, the person and work of Jesus Christ, and then offer that to both men and women. Because when you just offer it to men, you're tacitly saying, women, look, if you struggle with this problem, we're not really going to address you or include you in the conversation. And that just needs to change. I'm sympathetic, right? It's hard enough to have this conversation, much less do it fully orbed and well, and none of us are going to do it perfectly. But we were really committed. So we have Ellen Dykas from Harvest USA, who's the best. She's awesome. And then Jenny Solomon, she's the wife of a professor at Southern, and she's incredible too. So much fun to work with, and both of them just killed it for their chapters. So I'm super grateful that they were willing to put their time into it.
Yeah, that's the that's the reality of the the engagement with pornographic material within women. I mean, the number is on the rise, and I don't even know actually what the current statistic is, but I know the last time I looked at it, it was somewhere around the 38 to 40th percentile, and that at the time was shocking to me, because I know I had probably had I had the traditional misconstrued ideas, way back when, about, again, like you said, primarily the guys issue. There's there is a sense in which the reasons for pornographic engagement can vary from men to women, and how they're initially exposed to it. I think the stories that I've heard from a lot of women, like while you like you said, kind of there's kind of proper hardcore content. There's also the, like, within pornographic content within, like, what they're reading specifically. Like there's usually, like, there's other, because there's a desire for sort of, like, and this is how it kind of, I think, it ties in together. And I'd be interested to see if you guys kind of experienced the same thing and what you saw. A need for intimacy, and then there's engagement in that kind of material on the women's side, can be on the guy's side too. And so that's how maybe women are engaging it, and then men for other reasons. And then these two individuals come into a relationship for the very reasons of what they're lacking, relationally. But what they've been engaging in is actually creating this kind of, it's like they're pulled together, but then pushed apart from each other for the very reasons of what they've experienced so far. And I think, and it said in the documentary early, like one of the early chapters, it was, it talks about this couple who, had not talked with each other about what their experiences had been. Both of them had, were struggling with this. And then they get into their marital relationship, and there's an assumption that the marriage itself will fix things, or it will overcome those things. And almost what it does is actually just puts a giant magnifying glass on the problem, right? It kind of forces you into this place. And, so all that to say, anymore it feels like, and I know within my own counseling practice, I know that men and women, when they come into my office, increasingly so, there's a conversation about some sort of sexual malformation in the lives of both of them, because of these things. And it isn't one or the other specifically. And I think that's an important thing that you guys, again, highlighted well, gave a balanced perspective too. So hopefully that's helpful for people.
Yeah. It would have been really nice if we could, explore and really address some of those, like, relationship marital dynamics more. And that's not quite the heart of this documentary. Yep. And you guys know this, as communicators, you really got to pick what you want to say and then say it well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so hard because it's, pornography, sorry, let me rephrase. Scrap that sentence. Sexuality, God's gift of sex, is just this incredible, beautiful gift to humans in the context of marriage. It's like one of, the fact that marriage images Christ in the church. Like, there's just these deep, rich theological depths there. That is such a beautiful thing. And then pornography enters that equation. And then there's pornography, romance novels, like the worst kind, and all of these things just pull this distortion in almost every key thing that God designed sex for, takes it, the same thing, and then just orients it back towards yourself. And so when you've been trained with pornography so long to hunt for what gratifies yourself more, to then take what God used that for and then reapply it for someone else, becomes this, like, extremely foreign concept. And then people have to relearn how to use sexuality. And for a lot of people, relearn how to use sexuality that they discovered when they were 8 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Years before they hit puberty, years before they were ever supposed to know what that is, which is then years before they were ever supposed to put that in practice in the context of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard, man. My heart goes out to, like, if someone's listening, right? They're, I don't know, 18, 19, or 25, whatever. It's possible they're decades, plural, deep into a struggle of pornography that started long before they really had, like, the wisdom categories to navigate that. And it's hard, like, and that's why we kind of what you said, Joel, like, about, like, having that heart of compassion and offering the hope of the gospel. It has to be there, because, like, honestly, a documentary being like, "Woo, porn's scary, porn's bad, you're a sinner," it's not necessary. We know plenty of guilt out there. There's enough guilt to spare.
Right.
But to offer the hope of the gospel that say you can change, and it's going to be hard, but there are steps that work. Like, That's what I'm the business about. And that's what makes it fun. Like that's what's exciting about this.
Yeah.
We're not trying to scare anybody. And you guys are, as counselors, as pastors and stuff, you know that it's just not helpful to scare people into the kingdom, right?
Well, yeah, and well, because what you get them in with is what you have to keep them there with, and that's
Amen.
that's the thing. Like the scare tactic, it can go one of two ways. You can the ditch on either side is bring them in with a hey, everything is super easy, fun, and shiny, and so hey, try Jesus on, and be religious good and service on that side. Or bring them in with the fear and the shame and whatever, but then you have to keep perpetuating that.
Yeah.
And surprise, people don't grow well under that, and that's a whole other episode for why we exist in kind of a national discipleship crisis because of those same reasons. Like to see actual transformation and change happen in lives is, I believe, 110% possible, but we've got to, and I think you guys have illustrated it well in the content that you've made. We have got to talk about the things that actually matter and actually yield change. And then we have to be obedient to those things. That's the other thing. Like not just mentally assenting to truths, but following and walking them out. And that's that's why we need each other. That's why, I think viewing this documentary in the setting of a communal setting. Like I'm even thinking about the small group, the men's group that I'm in with. We're all a bunch of dads, we've got kids from every age range, but we're always having the conversation with like, oh my gosh, like how do we actually get how do we clearly communicate this, not frighten our children to death, but also not allow them to be ignorant or unprepared. And and then even in that conversation, it's like, and then by the way, Joel, like, how are you doing? Like you're trying to lead young men well. Turns out you need to have your radar up, and you need to have an awareness there too. So super helpful. Question I would have is in this process, like you guys are still pretty early. How long has the documentary been out in the wild to this point?
Yeah, we had our official Canadians. We're a couple of Canadians, by the way, for what that's worth.
I couldn't pick up on that. A boot.
Yeah. Hey, dude, my accent's all muddled up. I was born in New Zealand, moved to Canada.
Even better. And now you're in Kentucky. My gosh.
Dude, I don't know, and I've probably picked up a teeny bit of a southern twang somewhere.
I'm sure.
Anyways, so we had our proper Canadian premiere on the 28th of January. And then we had a lot of the incredible people at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary got together. We had a second kind of U.S. premiere there a few weeks ago. So it's been about a month, couple months almost.
Yeah, but we're fresh on it, Andy. We're early adopters, and that's really what I heard him say.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering in the process, and because you guys are early on, what are there just some maybe general stories that you're hearing coming out of this, or maybe we're early enough yet that I don't know, like maybe it's still sort of emerging, but what has been the response to this point?
Yeah. So we have a couple stories which have been really fun to hear. One of the cool stats that I love is we are at, I think, 94 churches and small groups have locked on, filled out a form, locked on, committed to showing it at their church or in a small group context. So, which I'm thrilled about, because that means, saints are grabbing hold of this resource and then doing the hard work in their local community, doing accountability, absolutely. Which is awesome, because I'm a resource creator. I'm a creative. I love storytelling. I love teaching. But the real work is going to be the months that you're walking alongside each other, that you're having those conversations, like those hard conversations. And so I'm really excited to see it, exactly what you said, in the context of community and in the local church. But one particular story that I was really thrilled about is there was a kid around here who went to the Asbury revival, all that stuff that was happening. And he just got really convicted of his addiction to pornography. And he came back and he just came back to his house, and his sister, who he had a really good relationship with, and sister's friend were there. And he just came to his sister and just said, "Look, I need to confess to you. I'm completely addicted to pornography and I need help. Um, her friend was there and said, "Hey, I just heard of this documentary that just came out about pornography. Do you want to Google it and see? Like maybe it will be helpful." And they watched it, and
Oh,
apparently it
wow.
was really helpful. And I love that because I assume this kid probably didn't have. I say kid, I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but I don't think he had, Deepak's book, Heath's book in his back pocket. Like he probably didn't intuitively just know the steps, the first things, locking down your phone, accountability. But the documentary in an hour and a half, you can get some of those, at least those handholds to first start those or start, a journey, if you will.
Mhm.
And so that's the one that kind of kicks out to my mind of, and man, all the debates about Asbury aside, this particular individual was convicted by the Holy Spirit of his sin. Praise God for that.
Yeah.
And God used our documentary to be at least the launching pad for him. And I don't know where his story ends up. God knows. Hopefully he
Right.
has good community around him. But man, I'm thrilled to death that was a little story that we got to hear about. So
That's great.
that's one of them.
Yeah.
And
We
I'm
got a
sure you'll
couple
hear,
others.
and I'm sure you'll hear more though.
I hope so.
As things roll out, that's a really, really encouraging thing. And where do you guys hope to go from here? I mean, is it really just and I think after we're off air here, I'm even thinking of some ways I can connect you guys to some other networks that we're connected with. But I think about, like you said, you've got the small group resource coming out, which I think will be, as you know, and that's the reason why you're doing it, I think will be immeasurably helpful. Give some handlebars there to work through the content. What's the dream for this? What would you say if you look at it at the end of the day and you say, like, here's how we would like to see this documentary really fully played out, and even maybe next steps beyond that? What are you guys hopeful for? What are you praying for?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every person who creates something wants it to be seen by people, or no exception. So view count is awesome. But really, I hope it slowly and steadily, our prayer is that the documentary slowly and steadily works its way into church contexts, and that people just get on it and say, this will be helpful in our small group, in our Bible study, in our discipleship training, something like that. And seems to be what's happening so far. Soli Deo Gloria. We're really, really excited about how it's gone so far. So next steps, man, because you guys already were talking about this. Parents keep coming to us and saying, and godly, Bible believing, love their kids parents, and say, hey, how do I have this conversation with my 9-year-old? And these parents they're really keyed into the problem of it, but they don't know what a VPN VPN virtual private network is. They don't know how a router system works. They don't know. So there's all these steps, and then they're also questioning, like, how do I have these conversations, like from the kind of parenting, like growing up side of things. So we're in the process of really early process, having those conversations, beginning the fundraising process, because that's just a reality of, we want to make a really tight teaching series for parents that walks through how to have that conversation with your children, and then also how to porn proof your home. Let's walk through the tech. Let's walk through some of the principles about locking down your home, because that's not the be all and end all, but you can do a lot. And when you can do a lot, you're giving a breathing space for a curious 9-year-old to never come across that. And that few years can make a lot of a difference.
Yeah.
So those are a lot of conversations. We're really just reaching out to as many people as we can, learning, having those conversations, kind of getting people in our orbit as we start to kind of write this out. And it's more complicated than the documentary by a long shot.
Sure.
Because as parents, there's nothing easily temptable about this.
Yeah.
But so many parents are that's the first thing on their mind. How do I talk to my kids about this? And
Amazing.
so God's given us a few tools, a few connections. We trust that he'll provide funding, because he did it last time. So, and well, that's kind of where we're headed for the next one. So that's sort of 2023-ish.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Great.
Well, then we wanna get on the bandwagon and support you guys, and so we'll keep on telling everybody everything we can about the project.
Appreciate it.
I think, I mean, as I listen, I know, it's just like, again, how needed that resource is, how helpful it is to I don't know. I talk a lot about going upstream. You know, we're trying so hard pulling dead bodies or barely lifeless bodies out of the river downstream. What does it look like to go, dare I say, on the offensive a little bit, and to say, man, how could we keep them from falling into the river to begin with? How could we, you know, we are only ultimately chasing safety, and I don't even think safety is quite even the goal, but godliness and faithfulness is, and we will bump up against dark things like that. That's going to happen. Do we have the things in place, however, to live faithfully in the midst of it? I don't know. I just been in the world that we're in right now. I don't know. You guys can feel it. It feels like there's like attack and darkness from every side. You know, you're just wondering all the time, like, can we actually get through this? Can we actually parent without having kids that despite our best efforts, just go into the world completely confused and sideways on so many things. And it's going to take intentionality, but it's going to take the use of resources like you guys are providing. So I'm grateful for that and excited about that. And we want to promote it, want to get it out there. So.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. I don't know, like, maybe a word of encouragement. You guys have a lot of dads listening to this. I'm younger. Like, I'm not married, by the way. I'm 25. A word of encouragement, because I sit in this weird position where I hang out with the adults, I talk to the adults, but also, like, I got a bunch of like 17-year-old, 18-year-old friends.
Yeah.
It's possible. It's possible. It's possible to have those real heavy conversations. It's possible to have a 15, 16-year-old kid who's like, I mean, he's going to be a dipstick. You know that already.
Right.
But who loves Jesus, and he's fighting this as much as he can, maybe stumbling, but whose head's screwed on straight. And it's not a promise. It's not just, Deus from the sky, like your kid's going to be fine. We don't get those, but it's possible. And I know that because I've been a part of church communities who took this seriously, did the work, and by the grace of God have a good community of young people who are aware and thoughtful and working on it. So, yeah, I'm sympathetic, man. It's hard, but it's possible to have your kids walk in freedom from pornography. It's not an all-consuming fire, right? I don't know if that's helpful or not. I'm sure you guys can speak in on that more than I can. But
that's great. Yeah,
but you have to. Listen, God is good. God is good. He's not going to leave his church just floundering with no like handholds, right?
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate you being on the show tonight, but we can't let you go at all without doing the following.
Now it's time for the Dudes and Dads Pop Quiz.
Oh, get ready.
All right. So if you've never joined us before, we just pepper you with random questions. So that have nothing to do with the topic going on. So Joel, are you ready? Are you going to do this first?
Yeah, I'm going to start. I'm looking at my
trying to get some good questions.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Okay, here, first question for you. What crazy activities do you dream about trying someday? A crazy activity you dream about trying someday.
28-foot yacht cruising through the Bahamas. I got a spearfishing pole, and I'm just spending my days hunting marbled grouper I would, man, if I could subsist off of spearfishing fish for like a weekend or something, bless me up. That's what I want.
Best answer yet. Just hands down. Hands down. Well done.
All right. What is something that you like that most people don't like?
Oh my. I don't know. That's hard, man. With the internet, you're gonna find a sub community of every single thing that you're nerding out on. Where am I an island on?
It can be, and sometimes it's like a thing that when you're out and you try it or you do it or whatever else is like, dude, what is the matter with you?
I actually like Greek. Okay, in my seminary world, that's you're an island if you
do you find that most of your this is just Greek student Joel speaking. So so for my undergraduate program we were required Koine Greek study, like you take full courses at the undergraduate level. Yep. I would agree with you. There was a heavy division in the class we had one kid who was not even a ministry major kid. He was an engineering student and was just taking Greek for fun. I freaking hated that dude. Because he was the best. He was the best at it. He was the best Greek student in the class.
And he didn't even need to take it.
And didn't even need to take it. And all the rest of us are looking at it. Like the professor's like swooning over him, like he's some sort of golden child. Do you get that sense when you're in the class? You're like, there's a heavy division between, or is everybody like, I'm just taking this because I have to?
Nah, I mean, Southern's huge, so there's a massive spectrum. But like, there's one girl who's like such a cool person. She's like 19. She's in the undergrad level. She bumped up to the seminary level for kicks and is taking
She's my engineering student. She's that one.
Exactly.
And
she's like, no, I can't diss her because she's awesome and she's way smarter than all of us. And I'm just sitting there like, all right, good for you. But it is a little bit like, I got like 7 years on you, and I'm struggling with this participle nonsense at this point. But I don't know. It's what I found is more funny is the division between Greek and Hebrew.
Sure.
I cannot stand that language. I can't. Hebrew makes no sense to me. I don't know why every verb has to be 3 root letters. That seems insane to me. Greek is poetic. It's beautiful. I'm here for it. Hebrew can't.
Spoken like a true Greek student. Good for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, tell me about it.
You. Yep.
I hope. I love it. All of your listeners are like, what? Why? What is this?
But see, this is what this question elicits. That kind of response, right there.
Right.
So it's so wrought with problems. Okay, here we go. If you were, where would you try? I asked the question right. Where would you time travel? If it were possible, where would you go at what time period? Where are you gonna? And if you say something like, "Oh, I want to be there at the feeding of the 5,000," or like whatever, like if you give me the Bible answer, we're all gonna be really disappointed.
Yeah, no, I feel that. That's a good point. You weirdly like the 20s, roaring 20s.
Yeah,
I feel like because like let's be honest, you kind of want to be able to have civilized society. Like the cute answer is like, oh, that's somewhere in the mid. No, you're gonna die from pestilence in 5 seconds. But like 20s is safe enough. But like I feel like it's some interesting times. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
World War
100%.
World War I, middle of it, creeping up, somewhere around that, and maybe between World War I and World War II would just be an interesting time period to kind of get a pulse on. Like go to a couple coffee shops, start talking to some locals, see what's up. I think it'd be fun.
That's interesting. Good. Yeah.
All right. Who are your heroes in real life?
IRL?
Yep.
Here's a real life. Man, there's a guy, his name's Gary. So here's the thing. I grew up, I don't know if you guys have been chatting with me for a little bit. I've got somewhere in between a nerd and like California skater boy vibes, kind of. There's a little bit of an odd dichotomy there. So I'm passionate about resource creation, about pornography, but I've also said bro probably 4 times in this conversation. So I grew up in this deeply conservative Dutch Reformed church context up in Canada, Calvinist to the core, baby sprinklers, man, like showing emotion is not ideal.
Heavy stoicism, 100%.
You got it. You got it. 3 forms of unity, Westminster, all the good stuff.
I was born in West Michigan, so I know all about Dutch Reform culture, 100%.
Also,
yes,
dude, let's go. And also, look at me. Like clearly,
yes.
I am.
You joined the club. I got it.
Yes, I've Dutch. Everything in me is fresh off the boat. So, but I say all that as a caricature. These are some of the church I grew up in has some of the most wonderful men I've ever met. And I had my punk stage where I was like, organ music sucks. This is the worst. And then did my own thing. But when I came back and really actually started paying attention to some of the men there and like going to Bible study, I met these old guys who just would be honest about how they were doing, really crack open the Bible, love Jesus, and were surprisingly radical. They had a couple ideas. I was like, really? And they wanted to invest in their church. They wanted to reach the community. And one guy in particular, Gary, he's just this old Dutch dude, and him and I are so different. He's just conservative as the day is long. I'm not, but I just learned a lot from him because he was careful and thoughtful and intentional. And then every once in a while would be like, no, the idea that you have of me right now, I'm about to blow your mind because I've thought a lot about this and it's actually slightly different. And then I was like, wait, what? You're it was great. And so, 20-year-old me just got the opportunity to learn a lot from from a group of saints. So he's one of my heroes because
Love
that
it.
guy has done so much quiet work in the church for decades. And I need that as a young guy who's, bouncing with ideas, want to go film and save the world. To have someone who's invested in his local church and has done incredible impact in one place means a lot to me.
Beautiful. We'll ask you this. What is your current, you know what, we'll say current, or you can do past, television series. What's your fave? What's your go-to?
I haven't watched TV in
Yep,
a long time. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Listen,
Yeah.
I am the guy that will pick up a systematics textbook and read it for kicks. I'm embraced it.
Well,
Like,
hey, it's been a great evening, everybody. Thanks so much.
Listen, Hey, ask me to fiction. I'll talk Dostoevsky off your ear for an hour, but like I'm not a TV guy.
Staying away from TV. All right.
All right. This is the last question. What is your most treasured possession?
That's good. So, Jamichael and I, we lived in a van for 2 months while we were traveling through.
I love this already.
We were traveling through Florida and Texas. We were working on an old documentary, and one of the things we did, we had this thing we invented called tub hopping. I cannot believe I should not be saying the story.
I love it. This is what we live for. Here we go.
So tub hopping, and we were younger. Okay, this was young. We had to go look. Hit me up on Instagram at It's the Volk. You'll see there's an old 1977 Dodge Tradesman van, high top. We gutted it, rebuilt it, lived in it for 2 months. And so young lads, short on money, high on risk factor, and we. As if this wasn't only a handful of years ago, we went tub hopping. So we found out this beautiful thing where there's an inverse correlation between the level of security and the niceness of the hotel. The nicer the hotel, you can just stroll on in there. And so what we did is we'd chuck on a pair of bathing suits and stroll into hotels, chill in their hot tubs, and then rate them online, and then leave. So
Yes.
we invited ourselves into dozens of hotels across eastern United States, through Florida, through Texas. During the travels, I bought a crash guitar for the process. And during the travels, I just collected stickers from all over the place we went to. And I just stickered up this old guitar. I don't anticipate having any period of 2 months in my life that was more fun than living in the van. And so I have that guitar. It's awesome. It's all it's got all these stickers on it. And I would be destroyed if I wrecked that thing. And because it's just got all these memories from all these ridiculous things that we did. I'm passionate about having fun, and God is good, and He's given us some fun opportunities to do some things. I think Jamichael will probably shoot me for telling that story on air, but
awesome.
I can't say that I haven't done the same thing. Like, we didn't necessarily rate them, but we've been into hotels that I have not been a guest at before to go swimming. So
Guest in quotes.
yeah.
Love it.
well, can you tell us where we can find the documentary, how people can get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, man. IntoTheLightDocumentary.com. It's
Great.
free. I genuinely, my request of your listeners is, if you would prayerfully consider if this documentary could be something that you could bring to your local church, to your pastors, to your small groups. And if you watch it and if you like it, I hope it's helpful for people. So IntoTheLightDocumentary.com. You can also hit us up on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff, all the socials for Into the Light Documentary, if you want to stay in contact with us. Or
Great.
Yeah, that's all the deets.
Yeah, as always, we if you head over to dudesandadspodcast.com, Andy will put all this good stuff, all the context and all that in the show notes. You can follow up and find the info we've talked about here. So yeah, engage there. Dudesandadspodcast.com and
on Instagram.
Well done.
You always throw that at me, like, what am I supposed to pull in there? And Instagram, Dudes and Dads Podcast.
Tightly run ship around here. Hey, Dudes and Dads Podcast at gmail.com. If you got any show ideas, feedback, all the goodies, we'd love to hear from you. Just engage.
Our voicemail, too. We have 574-213-8702. I had to get that one in there, too.
Thank you so much. Please call, leave a voicemail. We love it. It's good. Hey, guys, we're grateful for each and every one of you checking us out yet again, hanging with us. We love you as our listening community. Couldn't do it without you. So until next time, friends, we wish you grace
and peace.